Welcome to the Kal Korff radio show, Kal's Corner, online here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. And the executive producer of this show, as always, is the one and only Rob McConnell. Folks, welcome back. I want to thank you so much for tuning in again and your tremendous support. I just can't thank you enough. It's overwhelming. For example, I woke up this morning after taking a short so-called power nap, to use today's ridiculous vernacular, and my communications computers, all that, were overwhelmed by the reactions to some stuff I had posted, which we'll get into shortly. And we'll also talk about on this show the upcoming series that I'm hosting, honored to be part of. It's X-Zone Investigates, and we'll get into that in a moment. Let's start by saying this. Again, I want to thank everybody who watches and follows or takes time from their schedule to bother to pay attention to anything that I say or do. Now, I'm not talking about people who are conspiracy nuts and cyber stalkers and people who harass me online or whatever. Those guys can go do whatever they want to do with themselves. I don't care. I don't really pay attention to them because I know what I do, and most importantly, I know what I don't do. So I don't have time for people to tell me what I do when they're not involved, they're not me, they're not concerned, and they have no clue. They're just liars, haters, extremists, and cyber stalkers. And that's objectively, I think, provable. So in Kal's Corner, we cover everything from the paranormal to politics, which is a wide variety of subjects. And I want to start this show by talking about two things: the genesis of some of this stuff and how it's evolved and, more importantly, devolved over the last couple of decades, at least what I've observed and experienced firsthand in my short life. And then we'll talk about the upcoming series. I'm honored to report that there is a teaser preview 1 that has been released. It will be posted here on a link with this show. It's a short video that shows the introduction of the show, what subjects it's going to cover, and you can go ahead and view it on Facebook or your mobile device. And then, of course, we'll have more previews, and we'll have a broadcast date very soon. And, of course, it's on Channel 17 on the X-Zone TV network. All right, let's go back in time here and explain where I'm coming from on some of these issues. Now, I want to tell you that as a young boy growing up, anyone who knows me will immediately testify that I've always been not only a why person, but a why of the why person. I remember on more than one occasion, my father would say something, whatever it was, and I'd say, why? And then he'd explain why. Then I'd say, why? I'd just keep doing this, not to bug him, but because I wanted to know the why of the why of the why of the why. And at some point, he'd just say, son, it just is. Or he'd get mad and he'd say, it just is, It wasn't that he hated me doing it, but, he wasn't an expert in a specific area that I was interested in. And at some point, he ran out of how to explain why. And, of course, as a little kid, I would just keep pushing. And if he couldn't answer my question, then I'd try to hunt down who could or find whatever library book or wherever I needed to go to find the answers, because I'm a why-type person. I want to know as much as I can before I die so that if there is an afterlife, I can compare what I see to what I thought I know on Earth and find out whether I was right or wrong. Maybe it might help me. I don't mean that literally, because I'm not sure there is an afterlife. But the point is, I have no problem with things I think are true ending up being false if it can be proven, or vice versa, only because I don't have an ego in all of this. Yes, I am confident in what I say because I believe I can defend it. If I am not confident in it, I think I'm pretty good at admitting that. And I've always been the first person to say that I don't mind being wrong, meaning in my short life, being wrong has been one of the greatest teachers. I don't have a problem with that. What's important is that you learn and that you apply the lessons that you learn going forward so that you don't make those mistakes again, or more importantly, that you learn. And I believe that knowledge should be shared. It shouldn't be hoarded. Knowledge belongs to all of us. Nobody has a exclusive right or a copyright or whatever on a piece of knowledge when it should be shared with humanity. Imagine if I knew something and always kept it to myself, and if everybody else did that. Do you think for a minute we'd have today's society and technology and progress? No, we wouldn't. God knows what we'd be like. So, again, I have no problems with this. But I will tell you something that I saw as a very early age, which always bothered me. And the reason I stayed into the subject is because my fear is that it would get worse and morph and devolve from being just unique to the so-called fringe areas and end up being in mainstream society. And let me explain what I mean by that. As people who know me will attest, I started out when I was very young, at age 11, getting interested in the paranormal and what are called UFOs, or unidentified flying objects. And the reason I got interested in that subject is because regardless of whether we're being visited by other life forms or not, it ultimately doesn't matter from the standpoint that as long as we can understand the UFO subject, whatever there is to understand, we can only learn from that process. Now, that's true with anything. If you can learn from something, you learn. The key word is learn. And with the subject of UFOs, it's pretty binary, and I don't mind binary things. In fact, I prefer them. It's much easier if things are yes, no, right, wrong, black, white, top, bottom, so on. The real challenge is when they end up being some sort of color, or gray, for lack of a better term, and you're kind of in between. It's maybe 20% this, 30% this, 15% that, 8% that. That makes things a lot more complicated. It is a fact that stuff does exist. There's stuff that's black and white and color and gray and binary and vague and all over the map. But what we try to do as human beings is to understand our universe, learn something, and I believe that all of us as human beings have a moral, ethical, total, existential duty and obligation that when we leave this world and we die, because we all will, it doesn't matter whether you believe in reincarnation or not, you're going to die, that we leave the world in a better place than when we came into this world, whether it was via reincarnation or just a one-shot live and die and that's it forever type existence. And I know that death makes people sad. I have lost people that I love and care about, including best friends. I've lost fellow journalism colleagues in Pakistan and elsewhere who have been murdered by Islamic extremists. I have done my part to try to help, with the issue of terrorism and peace and understanding and trying to help people get along. If you look at my eclectic mix of friends all around the world, they run the entire spectrum from atheists to religious people from Jews to Muslims. I don't have a problem with that. I want people to get along. And I try to be kind of a bridge between that process, but also defending what I think is right. I have no problem saying that Hamas is a terrorist group, because they are. I do have problems with people who try to justify Hamas as being some sort of legitimate entity or moral equivalent to Israel or anything sane, and that's just plain nonsense. Because we must remember that Hamas was not legitimately elected. They were initially, when they confined themselves to a small sliver in Gaza, they won the election over the Palestinian National Authority. But after a couple of years, Hamas did what Hamas does. They started killing people. They're terrorists. And they executed and murdered over 650 Palestinian National Authority personnel, staged a violent coup. The PNA was forced to leave Gaza and relocate in the West Bank. Israel pulled out of Gaza. And Hamas, since that time, has murdered political opponents. For those who support Hamas and apologize for them and try to say they're equivalent to Israel, which is wrong, go ahead. Try to exercise free speech in Gaza. Try to start a political party that opposes Hamas. They'll kill you. And if you don't believe me, I'm sorry to say, go try. Okay? So I don't have patience for people who try to tell me a terrorist group is not a terrorist group. And I do have some people I know who try to argue that, and they're from the Islamic world, but we disagree. But the main thing is we agree to disagree. And although we agree to disagree, we don't want to hurt each other. We will never agree on that issue, at least for the foreseeable future, but we can still be civil within that understanding of interactions, okay? There are people, for example, I remember one time I had a very good friend that when he found out I was Jewish because he was a hardcore Catholic, he had a real problem with that. And I asked him what his problem was. Excuse me. And he said that, Jews killed Christ. I said, well, it's not really that way, but okay. And I'm familiar with that blood libel spread by the Catholic Church because that's what they've done over the centuries, and the Pope has since apologized for that. I think he did that last year. Took him centuries to do it, but he did it. So the point is, when he found out I was a Jew, he realized that Jews aren't bad, okay? And we've been very good friends ever since. So the point is, people may agree to disagree. Whether you believe in UFOs or not, fine, but allow the other person to have their belief, debate back and forth, try to learn from one another. And if someone changes your mind because you believe in facts and you believe their argument, what happens as of that process? You grow, you learn, you expand, and hopefully over time, especially through the powers of social media now and having children, that you pass that wisdom on to subsequent generations, hopefully for the better. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be happening a lot now in today's society, and we'll come back to this point after the break, because it's reached the point now where things have become so polarized that it's no longer UFO conspiracy and alt-right circles that just are full of you-know-what. It is a lot of people across the spectrum. If I say Trump did a good job doing this, they think suddenly I'm a right-wing Trump supporter. If I say the Democrats did a good thing, they think, oh, he's a liberal. No. I take each issue on its own merits. I'm very clear about that. And how dare you try to peanut butter me with a single paintbrush. We'll be right back.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Welcome back to segment 2 here on Kal's Corner Online, our Kal's Corner radio show. It's really Kal's Corner. Yes, we are online. We're also a lot of other places too. Anyway, welcome back again. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is once again Rob McConnell. Now, let's continue from where I left off. Again, what I realized when I was a young kid studying reports of UFOs and investigating claims of the paranormal, testing people who claim they had psychic powers, going to visit astrologers, crystal readers, fortune tellers, tarot readers, you name it, tea leaf readers, palm readers. I've done the whole shtick. I'm familiar with it, what people claim. Well, I noticed there was a pattern which really bothered me, and I was a victim of it and a recipient of it by the time I was 18 years old. And the short version is this. When I was a young teenager, I used a typewriter to write my letters, and people who would get my letters, I wrote hundreds and hundreds of them, actually thousands of them, during my years from 8th grade to graduating and eventually switching to computers. People who didn't know me by sight until I was appearing in the media and on TV, which was in high school and stuff, very young age. And I had my first book written and published when I was in high school. It was the Meyer Incident, the most infamous hoax in ufology, published by Townscribe Press and Bill Moore of Roswell fame, the father of Roswell, who wrote the Roswell Incident book, the original one. He had researched Roswell with Stanton Friedman. He's the one that arranged for the publication of my book. I've been longtime friends with Bill Moore, and of course, Friedman was a bit of a mentor of mine. So to make a long story short, I could do no wrong. I was a hero. I was the young UFO genius, all this other stuff. There's articles about this stuff. And while those, kudos are okay, whatever, the point is I loved interacting with people. I loved corresponding with scientists like Carl Sagan. They didn't know I was a teenager. They assumed that I was an adult. I took that as a compliment. And even when I debated UFO skeptic Phil Klass, which we became very good friends, I stayed at his house in Washington, D.C. when I was doing an appearance on CNN's Larry King Live after solving Kennedy's assassination on November 22nd, 1993. That's when I was on that show on the 30th anniversary of the murder. There was a pattern. As long as I didn't expose hoaxes, UFO believers loved me. But the moment that I investigated the Billy Meyer UFO cult and hoax and told Wendell Stevens, who was a friend of mine, I used to exchange UFO photos with him. Wendell had the largest photo collection in the world that was known. I had the third largest. Ronald Smotek had the second. We all used to trade photos and imagery. All of a sudden, I was a bad guy. I was a CIA disinfo agent. The Meyer people spread the lie that Bill Moore deliberately used me as a minor so that I couldn't be sued in court. Because, you have different legal issues and ramifications if you supposedly commit crimes if you're 18 versus under 18. And, of course, that was wrong because I was actually 18. My birthday is in March, so it's near the beginning of the year, not the end. But this is the lies and desperation that people like Wendell Stevens would stoop to try to worm their way out of the fact that they were committing fraud on the world with the Meyer hoax and cult. And so the only reason I started investigating the Billy Meyer UFO fraud is because I knew about computer analysis of UFO photos. I was starting to write a monthly column in a magazine called Saga UFO Reports. Actually, it ended up being bi-monthly because the magazine ended up being like that. I would work with Bill Spalding of Ground Saucer Watch and others to analyze UFO photos using what were back then state-of-the-art digital image processing, which is now taken for granted on digital devices like the iPhone. And, of course, long-time existing software like Adobe Photoshop. And we'd look for things like strings in a photo to see if it was a model. We'd look at the edges of the object, compare it to the edges of trees and other imagery in the photo. We'd try to do densitometer readings, etc. The kind of stuff that, UFO photographic expert and optical physicist Bruce Maccabee would do. I was there. And I've known these people for decades. since I was a boy, and a lot of them didn't know they were dealing with a kid until we later met in person or word got out. In fact, Stanton Friedman agreed to honor his agreement to keep my age a secret. He said, quote, "The secret of your age is safe with me," unquote. And we've talked about that before. So to make a long story short, when I realized that the Meyer case was a hoax and that Wendell was not being honest with me, then I thought, this doesn't make sense. I got to get to the bottom of this. And I wrote an initial paper that was published as the lead front cover story. I believe it was in the December 1980 issue of Saga's UFO Report, exposing the Meyer hoax. Then the Meyer people came out to California. I met them. They came out again on a special trip Jim Delatoso made to try to convert Al Reed and Barbara Reed, his wife, and I to their cause. I included a transcript of that 3.5 hour conversation in the original book and in my later follow-up book, Spacious of the Pleiades, the Billy Meyer story, which was published by Prometheus Books in 1995. And the bottom line is, at that point, the moment I started exposing a very controversial, famous case for what it was, a fraud and a hoax, all of a sudden, these UFO believers would say, oh, he must be a CIA disinformation agent. Oh, he must be bribed. Oh, he must be a debunker. I heard that a lot. I still hear it from people who don't know what they're talking about. So let me remind all of you people who love to throw around the D word, debunker, what debunker means. And I'm going to give you the real definition of it, not the Stanton Friedman politically correct definition, which I've never bought into, and no credible dictionary supports it. If you know basic English, and God knows today whether they teach it anymore in schools with millennials, based on what I hear they don't, the word debunker means to take away bunk from something. Duh, hello. Okay? Everybody knows that if they think intellectually instead of emotionally. Okay? Has anybody ever had decaffeinated coffee before? Well, what is decaffeinated coffee? It doesn't have caffeine. Caffeinated. So debunk, to take out the bunk of something. Well, what is bunk? A bunk other than a bed is nonsense. It's BS, okay? It's stuff that isn't true. So when I hear people like Stanton Friedman and people who ape him blindly and say the debunkers have a closed mind, their minds are already made up. Here's a paraphrase of a famous quote from Friedman, parroted by others because they're not thinking critically. Don't confuse me with facts because my mind's already made up. That's a debunker. Well, it has nothing to do with that. A debunker tries to separate fact from fiction, to take the bunk out of what's going on so that what's left is the truth. And if UFO believers and people who care about the truth value the truth and are after the truth like they all claim, nobody likes to say I'm out to lie to people, doesn't make you money, you would think they would welcome debunkers. In fact, they wouldn't want believers because believers have an agenda. They believe. They're already there. They don't need convincing. They believe. And they say we've got the evidence to prove it, but they can't, of course, prove it. So if someone calls me a debunker, I don't mind separating fact from fiction. That's my job. I'm a journalist. I'm fully accredited. My critics, dismiss that, but they're not the ones that are on these major TV shows like I've been all over the years. They don't write these books. They don't have over 10,000 articles published worldwide. So I have to laugh at these people who get on a blog that's free, say whatever they want and say, oh, it must be true now because I've declared it to be so. That's not the way reality works. Unfortunately, that is the kind of society that we're degenerating to, and it is outright dangerous. It is reckless, it is irresponsible, and it is wrong. It will never be right. So I'm not a debunker, meaning I don't make a point to just dismiss things outright or have a closed mind, whatever. The definition that Friedman and others say that is unique to ufology, or what I call ufology, and a ufologist is different from a ufologist. A ufologist studies UFO reports. Ufology itself is supposed to be the scientific study of UFO reports. We don't study the UFOs because it won't cooperate, but we can study the reports. But a ufologist is somebody who makes a conclusion about a UFO case that is not derivable from the data. And believe me, there's a lot of ufologists who are really ufologists, and they don't like it when I call them ufologists, even though I can defend that definition. So I am a researcher, an investigative journalist, earn a living at it, have for a long time, widely published on major TV shows, everything from CNN to Discovery to National Geographic, you name it, blah, 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 including this show. And I'm grateful for all of that. And I started doing it when I was 13 years old. I'm very grateful for that. Had wonderful encouragement by wonderful teachers I had, like Jerry Laparoff and George Malone and Bruce Edwards, Mr. Fred Kriege. They were all encouraging me and like second father figures. And I'm always eternally grateful for that. So I'm after the truth, as I've said many times, including on Fox TV when I was debating Jim Delatoso and kicking his butt on Encounters. You can watch the video yourself. And I said, I'm after the truth. I'm after the facts. I don't care what the facts are, but I want those facts. And that is exactly my view today. But you can't tell that to a lot of people when you say things that they don't want to hear or they disagree with. Unfortunately, we are becoming that kind of society, and it has leapt from what was the fringe area, the alt-right, the paranormal, the fringe sciences, the fringe whatever, into mainstream now, to the point where if I say, again, Trump did a good job, oh, you support Trump, how dare you, must be racist, whatever, all Trump supporters are racist. Well, I didn't vote for Trump. I don't support him, okay? I didn't vote for Hillary either. And we'll go into that after the break. And we're going to talk about this because I recently posted a 2-part series exposing lies by Al Gore, and all hell broke loose. And we'll talk about that in a moment after the commercial break.
From our broadcast studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, to the world and beyond, you're watching the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
AVS Media Demo.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world, interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Welcome back to the third segment here on Kal's Corner radio show here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff. Once again, I'm your host, of course. And on this show, we cover everything from politics to the paranormal, which is a wide range of subjects. And the executive producer of the show, once again, is the one and only Rob McConnell. Now, let's talk about, again, this polarization here. As I've talked about on this show before, and people who know me, my life and history pretty much has been an open book over the decades since I was a young boy and put into the so-called spotlight, did a bunch of lectures all over the world, all that other stuff over the decades. Basically, again, people who know me know I'm always after the truth, even if that truth ends up being something I'd rather not hear. Again, I don't have an ego in it, and it bothers me when people think that I've got some sort of agenda. Well, they're not telling the truth at that point, or they miss the point, or they're just ignorant. I have to put it that way. So, where it concerns critical issues especially, I am absolutely hardcore about trying to quantify things in a binary fashion or separating fact from fiction. You know, you can have some latitude here and there if it's something that's not really important, like, you know, how do you determine the truth about what is the best set of candles to put on a birthday cake? It's relative to the observer, just like beauty is in the eye of the beholder, as they say. But there are certain things that are not in dispute, and it is the vital stuff that impacts and affects our future and indeed our very existence that we must insist that we always know the full facts, and that when we make a case for subject X, it must be built only on truth, not lies, because the moment you try to build a legitimate case based on lies, you can't do any such thing. It's a basic, simple, universal principle that even I learned as a young boy, okay? So let me give you an analogy here. Let's say that you go around and expose, like I did, the Meyer case as a hoax. And somebody says, oh, this must mean you don't believe in UFOs, or you're saying there are no UFOs. Life doesn't exist anywhere. We're the only thing. Well, see, that's the problem, folks. I didn't say that. I said the Meyer case is a hoax, period. And I only spoke about Meyer. I never said there are no UFOs. I never said life doesn't exist anywhere else in the universe. I never said we're not being visited. I didn't say any of that. I simply said the Meyer case is a hoax and I can prove it. And I have proven it. Anybody saying I haven't is either ignorant or lying. And this can be objectively proven even in a court of law in any scientific laboratory. So, why is it that people will take this one claim about Meyer or Roswell or the Hill case or whatever, insert your favorite subject, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, whatever, that if you say one thing that shows it wasn't true, that all of a sudden you're a whatever beyond what you just said? I don't know why they do this, other than to speculate, because each person has to explain their own motives, assuming they're really aware of them and honest about them. Each person is different. Some people just think emotionally, which means they're probably not thinking, or react emotionally, rather than intellectually. They don't apply the rules of science and logic. So if a person says this case is a hoax, Meyer in this example, and he's not saying all UFO cases are a hoax or whatever, why is it that people make that stupid assumption? I don't know. You'd have to ask those who make that stupid assumption and think that way, which is not thinking critically. Now, again, I saw this pattern in the paranormal. I saw it in ufology, okay? And my fear as a young kid was that if this jumps over into the mainstream consciousness of humanity and the United States, we are doomed as a species. And I think you can argue that logically by extrapolating it. Now then what happens in the year 2000 is there's this presidential election. I had left the United States before that election. I moved to Europe. I lived in Europe for 10 years behind the former Iron Curtain, that is the part of Central and Eastern Europe that was given to Stalin and the Russians, essentially by the West, who didn't care about the fate of that part of Europe after Hitler was defeated. It was like, okay, job over, let's go home, even though it was really the job was just beginning. And it was a wonderful, incredible 10 years of my life. I'll never forget it. I met so many people from different countries. Again, I've been to 27 countries, all right? And then I moved to India. And again, I've made friends for life there. And, you know, being out of the country for 18 years, I saw the United States go from being all too often the United States of America to the divided states of America. And as a fellow American, I'm not going to accept that. I can't accept it. I will never accept it until the United States of America officially changes its name to the divided states of America. Now there are left-wing liberals who want to bring in democratic socialism because they're that ignorant and try to impose it as a system in the United States. So what I saw is that when George Bush beat Al Gore to become president, the country was divided. Now, I understand that dynamic because in the case of Al Gore, he won the majority of the popular vote, but he lost the electoral vote, so he didn't become president. And Democrats were saying, oh, we have to change the electoral system. It's evil. You know, it's wrong. Well, they believe that when they lose. They don't say anything when they win. Same with the Republicans. Sore losers. That's a good way of putting it. There are valid reasons the electoral system exists. It prevents a state like California from controlling the future of the nation, since no single state should ever do that. And while one can argue that maybe it should be replaced with a better system, I challenge anybody who says that to tell me what that system is and prove that it is going to be better. And if it is better, by God, let's do it. So the United States has been divided socially, politically, in a binary way since that time. And then it got even worse. And I remember this very vividly. I covered the Trump campaign and the 2016 presidential campaign. And I had a very unique view on this because not only do I have a lot of friends in Iowa and all the caucuses, my family was from there, but I was in India writing for, Daily Post and Daily World newspaper. I still write for Daily World newspaper. Will probably do that for the rest of my life. And I covered it being the only American, or what the Indians call Gora, a white person there. And, of course, they defer to me to cover it. And, of course, I have knowledge of politics, and I'm into politics. I love politics. I don't like the politics of politics, but I do care what's going on in the world and history and all that. And politics, you can't separate that from history. They're, joined at the hip. There's cause and effect there. And so I covered this, and I saw a presidential campaign that was a circus. Basically, there were roughly 24 Republicans running for president, and this guy Donald Trump beats them all. So I told people that Trump's going to win. And I predicted this against the consensus of the so-called experts. I predicted this against the unanimous consensus of my fellow journalism colleagues who started accusing me of being pro-Trump or a closet Republican. And that's just ridiculous. I was always a Democrat, okay? And I believe to this day that if there's any chance to save America, it is with the Democratic Party, not the Republicans. But let me be clear. I want to emphasize this for people who may have ideas of misusing what I'm saying. The future of America and saving it does not rest with the current Democratic Party, because the current Democratic Party has sold out, just like the Republicans sold out a long time ago. Let me just give you the latest example here. The Democrats like to say we're against big money in politics. We're against the fossil fuel industry because they're killing the earth, global warming. We need green fossil fuels. So the Democratic Party, much to their credit, banned for a short period of time any contributions from the fossil fuel industry, which means the Republicans would get all that money. But then the Democrats, under the current leadership of Mr. Perez, that's Obama's sock puppet who put him in there, they said, no, we're going to take money from fossil fuels. Now, if that isn't hypocrisy, nothing is. And it is extremely hypocritical, cynical, and calculating, because the shadow boss of the Democratic Party who got Perez in power is former President Barack Obama, our so-called green president, and yet he doesn't seem to mind the fact that the Democrats will now take all the money they want from any fossil fuel industry that cares to give it to them. And, of course, if the fossil fuel industry thinks that the Democrats are going to win the next round of elections, they're going to throw money that way. That's what companies do. They try to back the winner because they later can get their payoffs for it. Let's be blunt. So I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. And if I were to rejoin that party today, it would be in opposition to say, you need to go back to what made you great during that brief period in the 1960s when John Kennedy was your leader and Lyndon Johnson made sure that after his terrible murder and assassination, Kennedy's assassination in Dallas, Texas on November 22nd, 1963, that you move forward with equality done sanely. You get rid of this racism. You stop you uphold civil rights in a respectable way, which does not mean that you let racists off the hook or pacifists off the hook who attack white extremists with weapons. You shouldn't allow violence on either side, okay? Be consistent. So I miss the old Democratic Party because they used to stand for a lot of what was right. And most Americans identify closer to the ideology of the Democrats than they do the Republicans. And we'll come back to that point in a moment and explain why and wrap this up in the fourth segment.
Plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Welcome to the last, fourth, and final segment here on Kal's Corner radio show here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. Once again, my name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Boy, as I always say, every episode, time goes by so fast when I'm yapping away here. So let's wrap this up with the last minutes we have here. As I said, I've always supported the Democrats in the past. The old Democrats. This is of the era of John Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson. I started becoming disillusioned with the Democrats when Jimmy Carter was president, and what sane person wouldn't be? When I found out that Jimmy Carter, after the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan on essentially Christmas Eve, Christmas Day in 1979, and then Jimmy Carter, the most powerful man in the world at the time, the so-called leader of the free world, says, now I finally understand the Russians. It's like, hello, where the hell were you all these years in the White House? And governor before that, are you that stupid? And people will say, how could you ask that question? The President of the United States, ask him if he's stupid. Well, I'm sorry, you're stupid if you finally understand the true nature of the communist former Soviet Union only after they invade another country. It's like, how dumb can you be? If you're that stupid, in my opinion, you're not qualified to be president of the United States and have your finger on the big red nuclear button. So what happened is just as I was leaving high school, this invasion happens. And I'll never forget an incident that happened to me in high school. Because I was well known in the Bay Area, lectured a lot, I was invited to go to the Bay Area and give a appearance before the Council of Foreign Relations. And what happened is that the people who were also speaking there were from the Soviet Union, and they were trying to justify the invasion of Afghanistan. So when it came my turn to speak, and I lit into the Soviet delegation, and I didn't mince words, and I don't mince words. I'm a very blunt guy. Everyone knows that. I think if you watch a couple of or listen to a couple of episodes of the show, you know that. You certainly know it from my writings. I don't mince words. I don't believe in being politically correct. I think words mean something. They should be used carefully and deliberately. Okay? That's the point of words, to further communication and understanding. So after, when it was my turn, I lit into the Soviet delegation. And I said, how dare you invade an innocent country, blah, 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 the usual stuff, which I think is common sense. And I have to admit, I was surprised and stunned, especially by the delegation from East and West Germany there, when the Russians didn't even react. It was like I had not said anything. They were very polite. I thought they were going to, fire back, but they didn't. So what happened is one gentleman got up, and he went over to a map that they had brought with them. And the map broke down the ethnic and religious breakdown of people in the Soviet Union. And they said that in the next 25 to 30 years or so, Islam will grow to the point where it will dominate. And their fear was radical Islam. I'm not talking about peaceful Islam. I'm talking about radical Islam, the type of Islam that the Taliban and Osama bin Laden and other terrorist groups like Hamas practice. And they said, we're being proactive. We're going to go in there and get rid of these guys before it's too late. And I was just stunned by their reaction. And I was like, wow, I understand the point up to a point, but this still doesn't make it right because it wasn't that clean. One of the reasons that they did invade is they wanted to control the country. Let's be honest. The United States and the Soviet Union and other superpowers always have what are called their bastards in power, meaning in the past, the United States has interfered at least 80 times in the foreign elections of other countries. We've tried to put puppet governments in power over the years. The Shah of Iran was one example, and that blew back in our face, as it should have, when the Islamic Revolution took over and got rid of the Shah. But it caused the problem that still exists today, a radical terrorist-sponsoring regime in Iran, Ayatollah Khomeini, and you have this problem, which one could say the West contributed to by trying to run Iran as a sock puppet country rather than letting them enjoy the full right to self-determination. But on the other hand, back then in the Cold War, you were kind of forced to pick your sides, especially if you were in countries and stuck in between this. You either were part of the Soviet bloc or the U.S. bloc, and each side would go after you if you tried to switch. And I understand all that. But it got me thinking about the issue. And when I realized that we had a president, Jimmy Carter, who was too pacifistic to handle foreign affairs, and this happened, also the Iranian Revolution happened on Carter's watch, happened a month earlier. And then there was a takeover at Mecca where radical Islamic extremists seized Mecca for several days. The Saudis could not dislodge them. So what they did is they flew in French commandos, officially converted them to Islam. That was the BS game they played. Those commandos went in there and killed the terrorists. And then the Saudis tried to say, oh, we did it. No, they didn't. They needed help. And the way they did it, by the way, is simple. They simply put water on the ground and then put electrical cables on that water, and they electrocuted the guys, as well as using guns and grenades. So the point is, this is the kind of world that I was graduating into. And I really believe that if things didn't change, the world's going to end. It's going to end in a nuclear holocaust. And I realized we needed a stronger leader. And there was Reagan running against Carter. But Reagan was a little too far right for me. I was afraid he's going to lead us into war. And I didn't register for the draft. I refused on principle to do that. Carter had passed the draft. And I refused to do that because it's like, well, if we're going to get into a nuclear war, we don't need people. We need buttons. So I didn't register because I objected to the very idea of what was going on. And I made my views very clear. I wrote them up, left them with friends so that if I was ever prosecuted over that, I could defend my claim and legally defend it and work within the system. I wasn't going to break the laws. If I was forced to do it, then I would. Okay? I do love my country. I would die for it if necessary. And I would die for a lot of causes if necessary if I believe in them. That's defending a loved one, you name it. Okay? I'm normal just like you guys in that sense. So what bothers me today is when you say, I don't believe this claim about global warming. And they say, oh, you must be a denier. Don't fall for that trap. If I don't believe a claim and I show why I don't, that doesn't make me a denier. It makes me what I said I was. I don't believe that claim. And don't let the global warming extremists, people who push this, fool you and sucker you into the game of you're a denier if you don't believe what we're saying. Denial goes both ways. And what I have seen now in this two-part article that was published over a year ago that I republished yesterday, exposing lies by Al Gore on global warming, I point out the obvious, that no valid case can be made, especially on an important issue like this, critical issue, affects us all, if you lie. So stick to the facts. Let the facts be your case. And people say, well, Al Gore was still good because he raised awareness of it. Yes, he did, but I'm not attacking that. I'm attacking the lies. And that's the issue. Stop ignoring it. So when Trump lies, call him on it. When Obama lies, don't say he misspoke. No, if he lied, he lied. I remember one time when he said he promised over 30-odd times, if you like your health plan, you can keep it. No one will take it away from you. No way, no how. That wasn't true. It was a lie. And there are people today who still think, well, he didn't lie. He misspoke. No, he lied. In fact, the Washington Post said this was lie of the year, and they were right. So this is why I'm disgusted by today's polarization, because the truth is somewhere in between, and it's being lost. So I promise you on this new show, X-Zone Investigates, as I wrap this up, we will cover a lot of subjects, and we will give you data and present it in such a way that you, no matter what you believe, will be able to independently verify and prove what we are saying. If we cannot prove it, we will tell you, and more importantly, we won't even devote an episode to it. And what we're doing is we're taking some of the most popular subjects on the planet, things that people care about, they're passionate about, they're arguing with each other over. They form the nucleus of the genesis of key parts of our society, and we're going to get to the truth. And if anybody says it isn't true or disagrees, we can say, check this episode out. Deal with it. It is the truth. And if we get anything wrong, and I'm going to do my best to make sure we don't, I have no problem, and neither does the show, to say, oops, there's some new data now. Look at this, folks. Because we want the truth. We want people to be able to understand that truth, to relate to that truth, to become so excited and passionate about it, even if it's not what they would have preferred, but at least they now know, to go out and champion it, to say, look, you can check it here. It's right there. Deal with it. And that's what we're going to do. And that is why I've agreed to do this show. I'm very passionate about it. I am so honored and humbled to be the host of it and one of the two executive producers, along with Rob McConnell. And we're going to leave no stone unturned. And I'm telling you, we're going to boldly go where no expose series has gone before. And I'm proud to announce that when the link for this show goes up, you will be able to see a teaser first preview one of the opening of the show to show you what we're going to do. And again, I'm very excited about it because it's going to be on Simul TV, on Channel 17, on the X-Zone channel, worldwide, available for anybody to watch. Social media will be a big part of this too because it's a big part of the world now. And I promise you there's been nothing ever attempted like this. And that's the point. We want to be unique in that sense, walk away from these subjects after we deal with them unless there's updates, and tell people, here you go, here it is, deal with it, and God bless you, so to speak. So that's what we're going to be doing. I look forward to this. The episodes will be out soon. We'll have a date soon. In the meantime, enjoy the preview. And folks, I can tell you this is only beginning. We'll be back next week for another episode. Thank you.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.